Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 139 of In a Good Way podcast. Today's special guest is Katie Starnes. She is an afterlife communicator, an educator, an author, and investigator. She has been working as a psychic medium for several decades. She's also had a near death experience. And thank you so much, Katie, for being here. It's an honor. We were actually introduced by someone that maybe my guest are already familiar with, Jane Fecto, who I've done lives with, and I had the chance to interview her. So it's beautiful that she put us in contact. So thank you so much once again for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Jane's amazing. She was an integral part in helping me to heal from some of my multiple sclerosis lesions on my brain. Um, and just a wonderful healer. I can't speak highly enough of. If anybody needs healing out there, please contact her. She's really truly the best. I got to work with her for an entire year, and
Wow.
it was such a blessing, complete blessing to work with her. Um, but yeah, she's the bomb. So I can't speak highly enough of her. I'm not kidding. She's really is the real deal. And I find that there are a lot of great healers out there, but there's some that just have that extra oomph that's needed, and they can tell exactly what's needed and how to talk to the body in that way.
Absolutely. I think she's been one of my guests that either in the top three, maybe that I've had the most times on the podcast. So yeah, absolutely. I love
Yeah, so
Jane.
I'm grateful that she connected us. Pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, you have quite the story. So,
Oh,
I
man.
guess I always like to start in the beginning just to get a sense of like when your gift started or when you started noticing. Were your was your family accepting of it? Was it something that was already in your family, like a grandmother, grandfather that was able to mentor you, or when did you first start noticing
So
your
nobody in
psychic
my
gifts?
family was I guess, into the psychic arts or
Mm.
mediumship or healing or any of that. What they were instead was extremely Catholic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my mom was actually a Carmelite in the Catholic Church, which is like I think it's like a second or third degree Carmelite because she was a civilian, not a nun.
Oh.
Um, she was actually buried in some attire that is for a Carmelite. My grandmother was very sensitive. She would catch me sometimes catching things out of the corner of my eye or um, talking to my guides when I was a little kid and say, just ignore them, just ignore them. Because to
Oh,
them, I
wow.
mean, in that realm of Catholicism, it's considered to be very kind of evil, right?
Mm.
Um, of course, I didn't listen because I was a hard-headed little brat. So, but yeah, I kind of what I feel is that most people that have psychic gifts, or again, I believe that everyone has psychic gifts if they want to pursue them.
Mm.
If anyone wants to become a medium, they certainly can. They have to have the strong desire to, right? It takes years of practice and honing in on those gifts before they're really, I guess, I don't think they're ever complete, but before you can actually present them to others to make sense. Um, so I think that trauma has a great deal to do with that. Most people don't seek out becoming or expanding those gifts until they've had a massive trauma, usually a death in their family, or um, it could be a physical situation. Like I was telling you before we started this, that when I was born, I was a blue baby. So I would just kind of stop breathing. And a blue baby, for those that don't know, back in the 60s, that was what they would call it. Um, I guess before a child has SIDS, like sudden infant death. So
Mm.
I would just stop breathing, and my mom would bring me back to the hospital, and I would do it again, and she'd catch it because luckily she was an RN, so she did
Oh.
catch. She taught nursing for decades. Um, so yeah, I was really blessed that she was there to help me be able to survive. And then when I was 5, I had a massive blow to the head that caused me to have when your brain shakes. I'm sorry, I can't come up with the words today. Um, but yeah, I had to be hospitalized after that. My brain had a trauma to it. And then I wasn't diagnosed with MS until I was 40, but I probably had it for a very long time.
Mm.
So I did have a lot of traumas physically, and then at the age of 9, I lost my brother,
Oh wow.
and he was 14 years old, and I think that was another trauma.
Mm.
So some of the first experiences I had were even before that. Like I said, I was talking to my guide who I never even heard of, like the Knights of the Round Table or anything like that. But I lovingly named him Merlin.
Oh wow.
Later on in life, I found out that his name is actually Marvin, and he's a great uncle. But yeah, it's kind of funny how even as little kids, we're so open as little kids.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I
Absolutely.
had, my grandmother say, "Oh, just ignore them, just ignore them." I always felt like I was supported in a way by that because I felt like she acknowledged that I wasn't making it up.
Mm.
You know, I do have sisters that are very sensitive as well in a different kind of way, in a different scope. And a brother that's a financier who is completely opposite.
Oh wow.
So, and they're all very busy with they all I would say I'm like the black sheep of the family. They all have their PhDs and they're off pursuing all kinds of wonderfulness, and I'm doing what I do, which is mediumship and healing people with that.
Mm.
And obviously intuitive sessions and teaching, which I love, and running circles, and it's a blast.
Mm.
It's like you get to see a miracle every single day with connection, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So cool. So how did you become like you work as a healer now or
No, I mean I'm starting to like I've done maybe like 40 readings, right? And I've done them all like for free, just kind of to test. And yeah, they're always accurate. So I mean, and I get sometimes like I just never had tried it. Everything always used to come to me in dreams. I would see things even while I was awake, but I never really like I would just notice, right? I wouldn't really tell people it. I'd just be like, oh wow, I just saw that and then it came true, right? So I've always had the premonition since I was little. I could trace my first premonition to like 5 years old, right? Like when I was like 5 years old. And I remember telling my family and them brushing it off, like, what are you talking about? I remember very clearly like that memory of time. We already did this. We did this already. I
yeah,
remember.
isn't that like
Yeah,
time? I think it's such a trip.
yeah,
Especially when you're young like that.
yeah, yeah. But I,
I recall like asking my mom, and she remembered this too. Unfortunately, she passed in 2020, so she can't validate this now. But I remember when I was really little, we were driving and a plane flew over, and I said, "Mom, what stops them from flying into the buildings? Because I'm
mm,
seeing them flying into buildings. What will stop that from happening?" And she goes, "There's people driving those planes. They'll drive around them, or they're usually up too high to be by the buildings."
mm,
You know what I'm saying? Like I
mm,
was seeing this tragedy, and I also remember before my brother passed, I remember every time he would do anything, I'd be so worried about him all the time.
oh,
We went ice skating on this pond, and I'm like, "Be careful!" Like she would laugh at me because I would always say, "Brother, be careful, be careful." And like I saw it like the ice, like he's gonna fall through, or if he does this, he's gonna hurt himself. And he did end up in a tragic accident, which is horrible. Which I think that's such an inspiration too, though, that his passing has helped to heal so many other people.
mm.
And that's what you're doing too, which is so cool. I mean, taking something that's negative and turning it into something that's positive and beautiful. That's what you're doing here on your podcast, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't see it as negative just because of what I was shown about it, right? Like I was
Yeah, it's
shown,
positive. You're healing
yeah, yeah,
people
yeah. But
by
I was
talking
shown
about it.
even in a different way, right? I was shown, like I don't know if you're familiar. Have you seen a lot of like the near death experiences?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
when they
I
talk
had
about.
one that was very different from most, but
Okay, no, we'll go right into that. But like for example, when they talk about the pre-birth planning, right? Like the
oh
pre-birth.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I was shown all that aspect of it,
Oh,
right? I was shown
cool.
the agreement, right? I was shown making an agreement before I came here. I was shown that kind of stuff, which was which was hard to talk about at first because see, like, well, I don't. Well, I'll just say it since I said it. It's like kind of like the free will. You know how they say free will in my case, which I don't know how different it is from others cases. I was shown very clearly not as much free will as most people have, right? It was like agreed already, like it was mapped out. And I'm sometimes reminded every single day to that level of planning, right? Like
Wow.
so yeah, so sometimes to me it's kind of like, and I don't know, it's like who agrees to all this stuff, right? But I get
Oh
why.
yeah.
Yeah, I get why that's the healing, right? Teaching others like, hey, I've been through this and you'll get through
Hmm.
it. I've been through that, you're
Right.
gonna get through it. So yeah, but I definitely don't
So
want to
you
make
don't
this
really
about me.
fully
So
believe in free will. That I guess physicists would agree with you that there is no free will.
well, I mean, it wasn't. It's kind of like when you're shown something. Like, what do you
Mhm.
say? Like, I did. Like, if you're shown, like if you tell me, if you know that or your parrot just talked to you, it happened, and I'm
Yeah.
telling you, no, no, that's impossible. Parrots can't talk,
Mhm.
but it just happened, so it happened. So who? How can I argue with you, right? So that's the thing. Is
Yeah.
like, yeah, like so. I already know what I've been shown. Oh, well, I even wrote a book, right? So I think that's the thing is a lot of people you got to take their word for it. They showed me like it translated from the spiritual to the physical. So I have proof of it.
Right.
So
Right.
that was my kind of agreement, right? Which I don't know how it makes sense because I don't know what that does to the human mind to know that like, so I don't know. But I guess that's not my job to think about, right? Like to think about what is this? How are people going to take this information? But maybe most will disregard it, so it won't even matter in the great scheme of things, right? Like whoever gets it, gets it. Whoever doesn't, doesn't. And I think that's really what I'm like. I'm just supposed to be the messenger, and so be it, right? Like
Right.
that. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So like when somebody hires me for intuitive type work, I look at it very similar to you that it's like if you look at a CD and the lines on the CD, it's already been printed all out. Everything's done that ever
Yeah.
will be done. However, within that, I feel that if your free will is strong enough, if your will is strong, you can skip a beat. You're kind of creating a little scratch in that CD. So, like for example, trying to come up with an example. One situation was a dear friend of mine. She's a friend now. She's been coming here for years and years. Um, she came here and her brakes were just, I'm like, you're going to end up on the side of the road. I can see that happening.
Mm.
But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to say, I'm not going to read you. I'm going to send you to some place to get these damn brakes fixed.
Ha ha ha.
And that way we can hopefully create a scratch in that so you don't end up on the side of the road. So she was like, oh, well, I didn't hear them or anything. It was just, I knew that there was something going on there because I could see her on the side of the road and like, oh crap, and waiting for somebody to show up. And so she went somewhere and they were like, oh yeah, you definitely have a problem here. So she got that fixed and then came back. Um, Now that one was able to be skipped. Another one would be where this one's horrible and it's one that really sticks in my brain because it really had a huge effect on me. Um, a mom and daughter came to me and I could see that the son slash brother was very upset and he
Mm.
was not doing well. I could see him getting into an accident. And I mean, this is all negative stuff. And I don't usually like to share that stuff. I'm like, guys, if there's a way around this, let's show them that. In this case, there wasn't a way around that. Um, I said, you need to do everything you can for him because he's depressed and this accident is going to make it worse because he'll be more financially strapped. And all of that came to pass. And then he ended up offing himself,
Mm.
which I don't even like to use the word. I don't think we should on YouTube anyway. But it really affected me in that I could see that there was no way to get around that. However, the warning that they received that they were supposed to get from me, I feel, was in order for them to do everything possible that they could for him before anything happened. And that's what they did. They did everything in their power. So they didn't have to lay him to rest without thinking that they did everything that they possibly could to help him, right? And knowing that it wasn't their fault.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's
Um,
oh, go, go.
I'm so sorry. It really hits home because I have family members that have done the same. And it is as you know, something that nobody should ever have to deal with, to be that
No,
upset.
one, that's why. That's why I get the gift that was given to me
Hmm.
Because, okay, well, since we opened up Pandora's box, might as well go in. So
Yeah.
this is what happened, right? Basically, when that happened, that was my first thing. I went to a dark place, right? And I couldn't understand me with this connection spiritually. Why wasn't I warned? And I realized I did. I sent something and I messaged him. And I remember his messages being very short, right? And I was like, I called him, he didn't answer. I texted him, like, you good? And he put, yeah, you? Like, he never responded like that, ever in all the years, right? He was my older brother, never in all the years. So
He was a
when it
strong one,
happened,
right?
huh?
He was always the strong one.
Well, I mean, he was, if,
Big brother.
yeah, the big brother. So what happened though, what happened, even that, on the day that it happened, I was on my first date with a medium and she was sitting across from me. And so even the universe hooked me up with that. And she offered to
Mhm.
drive me before the police took his body. She offered to drive me to, and it was weird the way it happened where she was on her way to my house. She kept getting off the wrong exit. She's, I don't know. So I went to meet her, and if we hadn't met there halfway towards his house already, like everything worked out. That's why I was like, wow, the
Yep.
universe really like hooked it up,
Got your
right?
back.
Yeah. And so she offered to take me. She starts telling me right away everything he's saying. So when we
Mhm.
got to the house, but she couldn't even be inside. She was like, is it okay? I was like, the energy. She's like, yeah. She's like, it's like, so she waits outside, but she's telling me everything like he's saying. And a week later, another medium friend told me word for word what she had said, he said. She said
Mhm.
word for word the same
Isn't
stuff. So I
that
was like,
beautiful when that
yeah,
happens? That's why I love working in circles so much with a
abs
group of mediums. There's nothing like it. It's just,
absolute.
like I said, I get to see miracles every week with these people, and it's just,
No, absolutely. That's
it's
why
so cool.
yeah, I was like, for my friend after, I was like, I'll vouch for her 1,000,000%. Like nobody could ever, anything. And even that, like
Yeah.
for anyone to even say like, oh, that's evil stuff. It's like, do you realize the
No.
amount of healing that brought me? Like, had that not been available to me, I probably wouldn't be here right now, right? But
Yep.
but even after that happened, within a month after, all his friends, because he was in the military 20 plus years. That's what, they just brushed it off, oh, PTSD, blah,
Oh,
blah,
that's
whatever.
huge. 20 years in the military. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, he did 3 tours. So, he went to war 3 times, this and that, right? So, anyways, he was already retired. But anyway, so
Mhm.
about a month after, all his friends, some of them are barely getting the word, so they're messaging me on Facebook, his friends from the military. And then one of my friends pops up on Facebook, and I was never really on Facebook, but I guess I had seen that people were messaging, so I went on to reply to his friends. So I hear a voice tell me to message one of my friends, and I was like, no. I was like, they didn't say my condolences, nothing. And that's just our ego, because like
Mhm.
I guess he never really even saw that I had posted this, after, I guess that's what
Yeah.
he didn't know what had happened.
Oh,
But to me, I was
geez.
like, well, this person didn't say my condolences.
Yeah. And
I'm not.
Facebook's so goofy like that where you're gonna miss stuff on there,
Yeah, yeah.
unfortunately.
But so I was like stubborn. The voice was like, if you don't message, and then they were very calmly, they were like, if you don't message him, you're gonna regret it. So I messaged him, and I even went back and I read the message. There was no indication that something was wrong with him, but I knew, and I was like, I'm gonna call you. And I went to where he was, and when I went and everything, I took some sage, like kind of, cleansed off his energy, this and that. And, he looks at me and he's like, I think an angel or God sent you here. And then it hit me that, wow, like he was going through the same thing my brother had gone through. So then as grateful as I was to help this friend, I look up and I'm like, oh man, I was like, I will tear the heavens to shreds. Like, so you do this, right? You send me to help someone
Yeah.
else, but you didn't send me to help my own brother.
You
Yes.
know, the day that we lost my brother, my mom saved enough. She confided in me this right before she passed away that she actually was angry with God for a long time because she gave CPR and rescued somebody else's son that
Wow.
morning and then lost her
Wow.
own that day. Can
Wow.
you imagine how angry? Oh,
I know, I know firsthand.
I know you know. And it's just
Yeah.
like, God, why? But there's always a reason and a season. And I guess your brother is probably helping you so much with what you're doing and
Oh,
you're
no,
thinking,
absolutely. I see he's very
I know
present.
mine is.
No, absolutely. Well, then even that, like a week later, there was a ceremony, and well, first even that, right? Like, so I after I found that out, I was ready to do like to take my own life, right? So
Oh God.
yeah, I was like, but that was it was kind of like like my revenge, right? Like how dare you?
Mhm.
But then I was visited by like us, like in our indigenous way, like we call the star people, right? So these
Uh-huh.
beings visited me, like, and they showed me how we had already agreed to everything. So that's when it was like, what? Like they showed me to where it was undeniable, where I was like, so, and they almost made it at that moment, they made it look like it was all a school, right? Like he graduated. That's all it was. He graduated, like just like that. They showed me all, and they showed me the proof to where it translated to this world and everything. So, and then even a week after, there was I got invited to, like, well, I would go to native ceremonies, right?
Oh,
And the
cool.
and the elder that was like 80 something years old, he pulled me aside, and he helped me dedicate the whole ceremony to my brother, like in a way to send him off, right, in a good way and everything, right? And he looks at me in the face and he's like, he's all, the creator gave you something. Don't waste it. And I thought, like, I knew what he meant, but if anyone else had told me that about my brother taking his life, I would have probably punched him in the throat. But
Oh, dear.
because I respected him so much, I got it. I was like, okay, I got it. There's something there, right? That I'm gonna use, I guess, to help others, to something, like, I get it. But it doesn't make it
Yeah.
easy. Like your mom, like hearing
No,
that
no.
is
Thanksgiving was so like sad for me every year, and of course Christmas. And even though I have my itty bitty family with my husband, my dog, and my parrot, my horse, but it's like I still, I miss the traditions of my family.
mm,
And we create our own and our own now, but you still miss people, that the physicality of them, and even though people stay the same on the other side, they're growing and changing without me watching the growing and changing.
mm,
So it's very different when someone else connects. Say, if you were to connect to my mom for me, or my dad. Depending on the soul, though, I've noticed like my dad comes through pretty much verbatim for people.
oh wow.
My mom, not so much, but
Oh,
she was a little bit more reserved than my dad. My dad was really outgoing and gregarious and fun loving. My
wow.
mom was a lot more serious. So, um, yeah, I take after my dad. I'm just a dork. He was always singing all the time and so much fun to be around. Um, but yeah, it's very different. Connecting to other people's loved ones too. And
Yeah.
my vision of who they are as a person, trying to translate that. It's almost like playing charades sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's never fun, or never fun. It's never dull, and it's always fun. It's always healing for people. I remember now you asked about if my family knew. Well, they didn't know for a very long time until one of my siblings said, "Do you know what your daughter's doing?"
Oh wow.
Then I had a whole website and everything at that point, and I was just like, "Well, I'll tell them when I'm ready." And I just
Mm,
never really got ready. So I always had this little side part of me that I wasn't sharing, which was just not like me at all. Because I shared everything with them, and I
mm,
do mean every little nitty ditty like little detail about my life, especially to my mom. And then when they saw that, they weren't surprised. That's just it. They were like, "Oh, okay." I was really shocked by my mom's reaction though, and my dad was like, "Well, it's fine as long as you never rob anybody, you never take advantage of anybody, and you really
mm.
feel like you're healing people and helping them." And so I got to share some really cool stories with them about people that I had helped. And one I remember the exact story I shared with them was about a young college age kid that had he'd been murdered basically. And because of what I'd found, they exhumed his body and got proof of all of that for themselves.
Oh wow.
And yeah, it was really a tragic story. I'm still friends with the parents, and they're just wonderful people, but they still that was their only son.
Wow.
And it was very tragic. But I remember sharing it with my mom and dad, and they were like, that does, we wish we would have had someone that could have done that for us when we were going through that. So they understood.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't even I've met people that they had a loved one maybe murdered like 20 years ago, and they
Hmm.
still haven't found any kind of peace. And not that
Mhm.
it was instant for me, but now it's been 5 years, and I could finally say, like I had those 5 years where there were moments when you're just driving and break down crying, or you're just
Yeah,
sitting and it's just like, and the way too, the way obviously matters. It's different than it's just different, right? Like
right.
yeah, different ways are a little like that. Like someone like being murdered or this and that, like it kind of hits you differently, right? Or stuff like that. So
I think that from everything I've been told from the other side, most people don't, they're pretty much out of their bodies before that
mm,
kind of tragic thing that could happen. Um, I know from most people that I've connected to, that's been the case. I have never talked to anyone that talks about the horrid pain, or there's so much in this loving light of God that there can't be a better place to be, right?
mm, yeah. Like, I've been like I'm honored to have been able to do that, like
Right.
how
No
you have,
kidding. I would
where
love that. Oh my gosh.
where people, when loved ones have came through, even loved ones that never met the person that they're connecting with,
Oh yeah. Yeah,
and
all the
it's
time.
and the love is so exact. Like I've never experienced that here on Earth, so it's like they have more. It feels like there's more love on the other side than here. So it's
Oh,
like,
big time. Big
yeah,
time.
yeah.
It's I think we have a full understanding more there maybe.
Mm,
But I do like that's why I love this work so much is when like say I'm bringing through someone's grandpa or grandma or whoever and that love is flowing through me to them. I get to feel all of that and then them flowing back through and it's just like I don't get that any other place in my life except for in my work.
mm.
And it's such a joy and to be able to connect to someone that has doubts, that's my favorite thing to do is have somebody go, you know, wow, that is real.
Mm,
To see their eyes light up and like, wow, we really do go on. We really are energies that don't die.
mm,
And people, you know, I think I even had my doubts as a medium, even though I was bringing through great information and like we're talking thousands of readings that I've done for people, and I love every minute of it. And I was still getting connections and I was still getting information. I didn't have as much trauma as I do now as a 50 something year old. I think we just accumulate more as we get older and we learn how to handle it better.
absolutely.
Um, but I think that I had a situation that came up where I think I stopped breathing as an adult.
Mm,
And this is one of the things that I do remember very, very vividly, like better than waking life, as they say, where all of a sudden I was in this black, dark void, which
mm,
I'd never heard of before. Um, and I'm looking around, there's no light, there's nothing. It's just me. And I'm like, oh crap, am I dead? Is this it? I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And all of a sudden I feel this energy come in. I couldn't see anything, but I could hear and this big booming voice of God and just the feeling of love like I'd never felt before in my life at any moment. And I'm like, wow, you love me. You still love me, even though I remember when I was like younger as a teenager and a brat, and I stole $5 from my grandma. You still love me after that? And he just laughed, and it was definitely a male. He just laughed at me and said, you're so funny, and just the power, the love was just like I can't even verbally explain it,
yeah.
but I got to experience that, and then I woke up in my body,
Mm,
and I was like, oh, okay. But it was vivid, even though there was nothing there, and even though there was nothing there, and just pitch blackness, I didn't want to leave it either.
mm-hmm.
Which I'm like all about color and light and art and music, and I was perfectly content with just floating around in there with God,
Oh wow.
which doesn't make sense to me cognitively.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in this, yeah,
But
like,
I heard
yeah.
it's like a void before you go to the other side.
Mm.
I have read about it since then, but I didn't know about it at the time that happened. I think I must have been in my mid 20s
Oh wow.
or maybe early 30s. I can't remember. I didn't write. I'm terrible with dates, even birthdays, so don't ask me to remember. But yeah, it was a crazy experience. But you got to actually see your pre-life scripting, which, oh my gosh, I can't even, that would be so cool to see, but I'd want to change everything. So that's probably why he didn't let me see it.
They let me. How should it? It's almost like more like in my case, it was like annoying, right?
Hmm.
It's like
Yeah.
now I have a lot of past life memories, and it's like
Oh.
it's happening to me. Like just
Hmm.
like how after interview, I'll remember what we talked about. That's how it happens. It's like
Right.
it's just
Yeah.
in there, right? And I'm like,
Yes.
and those are the things that I have doubts about. But they'll show me like 50 confirmations, and I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
like fine. So okay,
Well,
I believe it.
memory for me is really strange like that because I can't tell sometimes if I'm psychically picking something up or if I'm remembering it. So I
Mm.
get that mixed up sometimes, which is, I'm like, well, brain trauma or psychic abilities, I don't know. They're all kind of connected to me, I think.
Wow.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I should ask my neurologist about that sometime.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's really funny. Like, oh no, you told me that you were going on vacation next week.
Mm.
And they're like, no, I never told you. And oh, okay.
Oh.
That's just how, yeah, that's how it works for me in my daily life. So kind of gotten used to it and used to kind of covering it up sometimes.
Mm.
But yeah, so it's just natural for you too.
Yeah, I mean, things get confusing sometimes. Yeah, it's strange, but I guess I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm very accepting of it, and
Mhm.
when it's gone away, when I felt like it's almost then I miss it, right? I'm like, wait, what happened? Like I'm not experiencing nothing. It's like
Mhm.
so sometimes, yeah, but I guess at that time I just needed that peace, right? I needed
Right.
to focus on everyday life, and so it kind of just goes in the back for a bit. But then I
Yeah.
realized there are things happening every single day. It's just not that big, like those huge kind of
Yeah.
like
Well, you can't not be what you are.
yeah.
And the other thing is I think that at times I'm being told to take a break. I call it going
Mm.
to dry dock, like a
Oh,
boat with all the barnacles and everything have to come off because you've been out on the
oh,
ocean for too long. And if
yeah.
you're out there for too long, then it's weighed down so much that it just sinks from
Mm.
all those barnacles from being out in the ocean. So I call it going to dry dock, and I'll know when my guides decide that it's time, or angels, whatever you want to call those energies, star people. I don't care what you call them, they don't care. They
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
have egos like us. So yeah, going out to dry dock and just letting all those barnacles float off of me so that I'm not going to sink when I go back out to do my work again. And I need
Mm.
those breaks. Everybody does.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I know we went off into all these other things, but would you like to
Yeah.
share about your near death experience? Because I know a lot of
Yeah, that was I know when it was when I was a baby, I actually died like I think it was 3 or 4 times. My mom
wow.
lost count. And I was brought back every time, but obviously. The situation that I just described where I stopped breathing, I have to have sleep studies done because of this stuff too.
Oh wow.
Um, and just to make sure that I continue breathing when I'm asleep. Yeah, it was just like going to that void
Mm.
and meeting God there. And it was I didn't see the light and I didn't really cross over, but I did go to that void and experience that love, that powerhouse full of love. It was enough to sustain me for the rest of my life, I think, to know
Mm.
that there is something else. Well, I do just from being a medium too, obviously, but
Absolutely.
it's like I think that God felt like I needed the refresher course maybe. And it was just this infusion of love more than anything. It's so
Mm.
hard to describe too because it really wasn't any. There was nothing there. There was nothing ugly. There was nothing beautiful. It was just me and God.
Mm.
And yeah, it wasn't like I didn't get to cross over and see some of the things that people described to me, which is miraculous and beautiful. Some of the visions I have are just miraculous and beautiful of over there, but that I can describe to people. but I think that I just needed the part of my brain that's the left side that has that scientific doubting part needed that kind of kick in the pants to say, this is real. I'm really here. What you're experiencing is real. You don't need to doubt anymore. I mean, these are all, things that were said without being said.
Mm,
But the biggest one being that everyone here is so loved beyond what they could possibly even imagine.
mm,
And it's not just one person, it's every person.
yeah.
That was the incredible sense that I got. And it was just overwhelming. And like I said, even though there wasn't anything there, I didn't really want to leave that energy, that presence, because I'd never
Absolutely.
felt so close to it before.
Mm. No, that's
Cool.
beautiful. No, I mean that's what when the beings start people, however, angels start people that visited
Mhm.
me after that energy stayed with me for like 2 months and I had to shake it off because I wanted to go with them. I didn't want to be here and it was so over. It was like my heart exploded. Like I was connected to them. I
Yeah.
wanted to be with them. Like I've never felt anything like it. I only felt something like similar like that. I've ran into where an angel appeared like in this physical form, right? Like it just and I started crying like and my
Wow.
heart exploded, my third eye started vibrating, and I started my logical brain. I was like, no, no,
Yeah.
I'm seeing things like I'm not seeing this in front of me right now, but everything showed me like I was like, no, it's because the sun's hitting my forehead, but the sun was behind me, right? And it was like,
Hmm.
so and then he disappeared, and then he disappeared, and I was like, what in the world? And I couldn't stop crying for over 5 minutes without like this crazy, but it was love. It was like love, like the presence. I was like, what? And that's the only thing that I felt similar in this,
Hmm.
in this physical body. It was like yeah, yeah. So I wanted to go with them too. So I know what you mean. Like you're good. You would have been good there because yeah, yeah.
Um, do you find that, have you ever had experiences around people that they're just not consciously ready for something and they don't see it or they don't remember it?
I want to say yes. I've like, or what do you mean? Like,
So, like for example, I'll have someone here and they'll actually be an apparition that shows up.
oh,
Um, and they will see the apparition, they will acknowledge the apparition, they will be sitting here at my old kitchen table bawling and just so like overwhelmed. And then a week later, because their consciousness wasn't able to take that in, they can't remember it.
oh, wow,
They
wow,
will remember that they had a great connection. They will remember all of the words that I said, but they will not recall
wow.
that other things above and beyond what they can remember happened when they were here.
No,
See what I'm
see,
saying? That's an example.
no, I've never had that happen. The only thing, the closest thing was like my dad was the biggest. Like
Mhm.
when I was in high school, there was, we moved into a new house, and then there was a little ghost girl that would appear, and he's only me and him and my dad saw like my
Mhm.
mom didn't see her, my brothers didn't see her.
Yeah.
Even a guy came once, he was building a patio and he saw her, right? And my dad was like, don't tell him because then he's gonna get scared. He's not gonna
Yeah.
finish. But then he would always be the biggest, like, I don't believe in that stuff. I don't believe in that stuff. So I'm like,
Mhm.
huh? Like we
Yeah. Yeah.
talked like how do you
How do you not believe? Yeah, we had an apparition that I grew up in this older home, and there was a guy that lived there before, and he was a ham radio operator, so he had all these wires going, which is why like every place I've ever been living in, it got struck by lightning right over my head in that house.
oh
But yeah,
wow.
yeah, crazy, just memories coming in. Sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm a little ADHD. Sorry about
No, you're
that.
good. No worries.
Um, but yeah, we had caregivers of my parents that saw this guy. My mom saw the guy. I saw the guy. I'm pretty sure everyone except for my brother, and my dad.
Mm.
And it was funny because I could just, I'm like, he's got a huge smile. And my mom goes, yeah, and he looks like Bill Clinton. I'm like, it's exactly right. He's tall and he looks just like Bill Clinton. It's so funny.
Wow.
But yeah, this guy, he was just there as long as I
Mm.
could remember. And I wonder if whoever lives in that house has experiences with him now, because we sold it several years ago, but it makes you wonder. you know,
And
if
even your
they,
mom saw him and everything.
yeah, yeah, she
Wow.
saw him. Everybody saw him. The caregiver saw him. And if you didn't see him, you got experiences with him.
Oh.
But I just think he was just watching over things. I don't think he was like not crossed or anything like that. You know, he wasn't a spirit that was causing mischief, or he was just there to support and watch the house. He loved the house
Well, let me ask you that for I
going
guess
on.
that anyone listening about huh?
Go ahead.
Oh, about the mischievous from your knowledge or all your experiences as a medium, what do you feel like what is the whole reasoning or what's the reason behind the mischievous spirits? Like why are they still around? Why haven't they gone? Like why do they stick around?
Well, okay, so back up a little bit. I suppose what I feel is that they're not all human.
Mm.
There's probably so many different energies that have been on this planet that we're not able to even see or sense, and they just want attention.
Mm.
Um, and I mean, think about it. If you were this, say, ball of light and you were able to knock something over or do something and manipulate reality for someone else, wouldn't you? I mean, I wouldn't want to scare anyone or hurt anyone, but I think just having fun, um, the reasons why are as varied as the 8 billion people on this planet right now.
Absolutely.
Everyone's so different. And I also believe that everyone's experiences about the afterlife and experiences, we can't have our consciousness in anyone else's body, really. The best we can do is try to blend with those energies to understand and be empathetic and caring. And so even with energies like that, which I've seen some crazy things in my life, and I mean, you can call me crazy. I don't even care at this point. Um, it's varied and fascinating, and like attracts like. I always remember that. So I try to keep my energy and who I am as a person to be on the side of good. So I'm not attracting anything bad.
Mm.
Um, I love what Jane said in one podcast that you had where she was talking about the protection that people do in their rituals. If some energy is attracted to you, there's a reason why. Because
Mm.
even if no matter what happens on this planet, it's allowed by a higher energy, which I call God.
Mm.
So anything good that happens, anything bad that happens, God has allowed it. So I guess just try to keep our side of the street clean, as they say.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
And I don't have to do any rituals or any specific. I do pray just because that's my upbringing, I think, and a habit. And there's nothing bad that's ever happened to me because of it. So I do pray before my sessions, but I don't do ritualistic things. I don't have to go around my house with sage. I don't have to, you know what I totally am in full agreement with that. I don't have to use cards. I don't have, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to depend on anything.
Absolutely.
I do think I have things that I like. I like to have my house clean. It's not always. I mean, sometimes it's trash, but I try to if I'm doing sessions, I will definitely put some extra effort in because I'm honoring those energies that are helping us
Mm.
and try not to look like a bum, I guess. Which on a good day, that's kind of an effort. That's what it feels like most days. It's like, oh man, do I have to get up and do this again? But yeah, not for my work. Just like to clean the house and cook and
Mm.
be a human being takes a lot of work sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It does. Let me ask you about the animal communication. Like,
Oh,
when did you because yeah, animals are my thing too. I love the animals, and they were probably one of the ones that first started like really giving me messages, and they'd come to me in my dreams and this, and they'd show me like a whole thing, right? So I was like, wow. And so I acknowledged them, and then yeah, like they'd bring me so many messages. So when did you first feel that connection with the animals?
I think I was just born just
Mm.
fascinated by them and just in love with everyone I'd ever met. Trying to remember really. I think it was probably the first dog we had, it was a sheepdog lab cross. And just knowing when she was hurt
Oh.
and what was going on with her. And I started writing pretty much right after my brother passed away. I think that was a healing thing for me, was to be around the horses.
Mm.
And I think that I connected healing with animals right away because of that.
Wow.
And yeah, I still occasionally will connect to dogs on the other side for people. Or like this past week, a horse with Lyme disease, helping kind of figuring, navigating what we can do for that animal that's suffering.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I've always had, I've usually had a lot more animals. This is the least amount of animals I've ever had.
Oh wow.
Right now, just having three. But yeah, I find that they're just so pure and their love is so pure. If they're not loving, there's something that happened to them
Mm.
that probably created that. From my experience. I don't feel like a whole person if I haven't spent enough time out with horses and other animals out in nature. I think that's my healing, and I think it's I don't know, they're to me they're not animals. I think we're all animals. It's
Oh.
just we're able to either connect with them or we're not. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. And I think I mean that's it might be just my personal uh opinion, but I feel like if it's our energy, it's more an energetic thing. If we're not connecting with them, they sense our energy, and that's why it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, like we're not a vibrational match. And so I think I've always been because I come at them very love and not like, obviously dogs are territorial, so sometimes but I'll like when an animal will like bark at me or something, or if I run into a deer and it runs off, like sometimes I'll be like, oh man, was my energy off? Or sometimes it's just their instinct, right? It's not
Right,
really,
right. It's
yeah,
an inbred thing that they're either fight or flight, and they have to honor that first and foremost before they're going to acknowledge a human being as being their buddy.
yeah, yeah. So, but
Um,
sometimes, yeah, if you're just like I'm in nature and there's a deer and we just lock eyes and we're looking
mhm,
at each other and it's a beautiful experience, you know?
mhm.
You just feel this beautiful energy from them.
And the energy between them and us, it doesn't just like you're not just taking it from them, they're taking it from you too.
Mm.
So have you ever noticed how people look like their dogs, or
Oh
in my
yeah.
case,
Yeah.
the dogs and the humans, or the horses and the owners? Oh, I mean, I could tell somebody if I go into a barn, I can usually tell who the owner is of each horse without knowing,
Wow.
because there's a similarity in the energy because they've exchanged energy so much.
Mm.
My horse is a total diva, but not really. She's actually very sweet and opinionated. And I'm like, yeah,
Oh.
she's just like me. What do you expect? Of course she is.
Wow.
But yeah, and then like there's other horses that you can just tell, like that one is gonna buck, and it's very opinionated, and I can tell, yeah, that's so and so's horse because they're that way too.
Wow.
Like I don't want that person on me, so I'm just gonna buck them right off. And like, yeah, that's just like her. But you can tell it's fascinating. Like if you start looking at like even dogs when they're walking down the road with their owner, you can kind of get a vibe of each of them and what each one is getting from the other.
Mm.
Like a little game you can play, or yeah, I've got all of these little things that I do in my head to
No,
keep
no,
myself.
that's while you're talking, I was thinking about like my dog. She was very healing when I got her. So I get, oh, and this is the first dog that I got. All my life, I've never had one of my pets. Like she comes to me when I first got her since she was a puppy. She would come into my dreams. She shapeshifted into this woman and she told me she was like, you know who I am, and I was trying to play dumb. I was like, no, and she's like, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, I know. So yeah, it was just crazy. I've never had so we have this really big connection.
Hmm.
But she's a little like ball of fire. Like she has so much
What
energy.
kind
I
is
don't
she?
huh?
What type?
A Labrador, chocolate Labrador. Chocolate Labrador.
Oh, that's, yeah, I've had three chocolate labs. That's why I'm
Oh
like,
wow.
oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
miss my labs. I want to know them
Ah.
so bad.
And where they like this, she has so much energy. She's like
Oh
just
yeah.
wow. Yeah, it's like
Yeah, I had a Kylie. She was one that my parents picked up after my dog Charlie died for like $50 or whatever. And she was a registered chocolate lab that somebody went to they went to Afghanistan or no, Iraq.
Oh.
And she was left.
Oh.
And yeah, so we adopted her and she was a pistol at first. She tried to kill my puppy that I had. I
Oh,
had another
wow.
chocolate lab at the time. And yeah, she tried to kill him. It's like, I'm having none of this. I'm not competing with anybody because she was out on like 10 acres by herself for like first
Oh.
3 years of her life because this guy went away. Um, but yeah, there's something about a lab that is just so loyal and
Yeah.
just so incredibly, I don't know, they're just the best. And
Yeah.
they're so ADHD, so they're just like me. They have to play frisbee 24/7. They
Yeah.
have to have something in their mouth all the time. I'm like, yep, that's my dog right there,
And
which
she,
is
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and she'll sigh if I'm not like if I'm outside and she's waiting for me to play with her and I
Mhm.
don't, she'll lay down and she goes like that. She'll literally sigh like, what do you like? Oh, if you came outside and you're not gonna play with me, why are you even here? Like that. She'll just look at me and I'm like,
Yeah, I truly miss having them. I had yeah, the one would open the doors and shut the doors and
wow.
this one's I think is my representation of me as an older human because she talks all the time. This little
Mm.
thing I taught her with buttons, so she's really bossy. And
Oh,
anybody that knows me knows I'm pretty bossy. I don't mean to be, but I can be a little bossy, a little much sometimes. And, she likes to hit her buttons and tell me what to do. Like,
mm.
we need to go for a walk. We need to drink water. I want to play with toys. I want to eat. And she just constantly she's really quiet right now. She's pretty respectful when I'm working though. So
Oh, okay.
she knows better. She's a good girl.
Wow.
Little warrior princess. I like the Game of Thrones and Arya was my favorite character, which is why she's
Oh,
named after her.
oh, okay. That's why it sounded familiar. I didn't make the connection. I
It was
remembered I
good.
had this little like MP3 player that was called Aria. It was an
Mhm.
Aria. So that's the
Oh
thing.
yeah, that's a brand too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Spelled
that's what,
different, I think.
yeah.
But
But
yeah.
I think I first heard it from, or did I already have it? I don't, because I heard even Game of Thrones before the HBO series.
Oh
I
yeah,
had
it was a
heard,
book.
yeah, I heard the first four audiobooks. I bought them and I listened to them,
Mhm.
and it was so much better than the show because
Oh yeah.
each audiobook was like 40 something hours of an audiobook, and the series was only what 10 episodes an hour each, so you only get 10 hours of
Hmm.
that versus the 40 something hours of information in each
Yeah,
book. So,
I've got the audiobooks too. But Arya and her mystical side was and that she was in the series, she was a tiny little thing.
mm,
And if I could see her in human form, that's probably what she would look like, and she would
wow.
act like so with her little sword, bossing everybody around. That's how
Ah,
I imagine my dog. And like it was interesting how we got her too. I had looked at probably 300 different photos of different dogs that I was considering going to go get. And I showed my husband like all these different ads. I'm like, which one would you pick? I want you to pick out of these. I just gave him like 20 different ones. And they pretty
mm,
much all look the same because they were all bish poos and different colors and stuff. And he put his finger right on her, and that's one that I had circled that I was gonna go buy
wow.
next day. And it was really crazy because I'm like, well, see, it's rubbing off. But he's very grounded. I think I needed somebody like that around that just very grounded and very not into, the mystical stuff. And
Oh, okay. So he's
yeah,
the opposite.
oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He's in retail sales. He's just, 9 to 5 kind of guy. I needed somebody that could ground me because I'm up in the ethers way too much, and it's like
Absolutely.
that dry dock we were talking about. I need that every day just to
Wow.
kind of come back down to earth
Wow.
and be a muggle.
Yeah. Let me ask you, just for me, I could, if you're not, because I know some people aren't into that, but I'm curious when your birthday is or what sign you are. Just,
I am a triple Gemini.
oh, okay. Yeah, I'm a Gemini, so that makes
Oh,
sense.
okay.
Because sometimes
Yeah.
I'm like, is it just a Gemini thing to be like, have these medium kind of gifts? Because we're,
No, I've met people that have every single star or yeah, star sign and different moon signs. Um, I look at it like your moon sign is who you were in a past life and what you were dealing with that you have actually learned. For me, that was a Cancer. And then my star sign is what I'm learning in this lifetime.
Mm.
That's how I look at it. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not an astrologer at all. It's just what I think I read somewhere and it stuck.
Well, when I
Made sense
looked
to
in,
me.
what was that?
I said it just made sense to me when I read it. I'm like, oh, that makes sense.
Well, when I looked into it, they said your south node is what you were in the past life,
Mm.
and then that the north node is like kind of your compass as to what you're supposed to kind of try to be more like. Which to me, when I read that, it made sense because I've always been around Virgos, but I have a love and hate relationship with them, but it made sense because they are like they're good at cutting people off. See, like how I was telling you, one thing I had to learn was boundaries. Like
Hmm.
they're good at that. Like they have no problem going ghost, and you're like, and then, but I've kept the relationship because I guess
Hmm.
with them I get it because they're communicators as well. They're like Geminis. They're good at communicating when they do, right? When they communicate, right? But they also have that ground. They're an earth sign, we're an air sign, so I feel like we're always up in the air. If you let us go, we're gone. Like
That's me. My
yeah.
husband's a Libra though, and he's
Oh.
also a talker, but only when he feels like he needs to.
Mm. Yeah.
But yeah, Libras are known for being talkative, but I don't know. I need to explore the astrology a lot more. I never really had that much of an interest in it.
Yeah. I think I learned I mean, there's just things in certain phases I go through where okay, I'm gonna delve into this.
Mhm.
So I didn't stick with it. Like I've interviewed like I think a couple astrologers or that
Mhm.
were really like, oh, Mars is going into this and that and the junction or conjunction, and I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, I don't think I want because then you're worried about that, right? Like, oh,
Mhm.
well, this so
Yeah, like
this
I
one.
don't want to know when Mercury is in retrograde anymore. I just don't want to hear about it. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. It's
But I always end up, someone will always tell me. So I'm always aware of all these things because someone will tell me anyways. And then
Mhm.
I have to wonder, did it affect me because someone told me about it, or was it
Yeah,
just like they,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
I learned for me personally, and also remember Mercury is a Gemini thing, right?
yeah, absolutely.
So it's like the poo will start hitting the fan, and it's like I'm redoing everything under the sun, as they say, redo the and I'll look and yeah, it's Mercury retrograde. Okay, it makes sense. But
Mm.
at the same time, I look at astrology as there's so many different types of astrology.
There is.
And I mean, how do you know which one is right? And it's just too confusing. I'm over analyzing it and going, why? I'm like my Gemini brain going haywire, right?
Ah,
So
yeah,
no, you've got enough on your plate already. Just leave that one to someone else that's been studying it for years and years. You do what you do and maybe
yeah,
hire an astrologist to help you and figure
yeah,
things
yeah.
out for you
Uh,
because that's not my thing.
yeah. So you're a Gemini rising, Gemini sun, Gemini.
Well, I, Gemini rising, Gemini. Yeah, there's a lot of Gemini in my chart. That's all I know.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Like I said, I'm not an astrologer. I know I've got Cancer in there too, but I think that's somewhere else. I don't even remember. That's how unimportant astrology is to me, which I wish it were more important and I understood it better, but I just never really got into it much.
yeah,
I'm too busy talking to the other side, and
yeah.
that's been my calling. That's been my and doing just regular intuitive sessions for people. Um, I have some computer software for it that I thought I'd get into it. And as soon as I start doing it, I'm like, don't you start wearing yourself too thin with this stuff. You don't want to be um, you know, jack of all trades, master of none. Just focus on one, two things and be really good at that.
Absolutely. No, no. I like that. So if you want to talk a little bit about the services you provide, I know you already did pretty much, right?
Little bit.
But but if
So
you
yeah,
want to
I
talk,
do offer a circle that's a 6 week mediumship circle where people at all different stages of development of the unfoldment of mediumship come together and we work together. We do it as a group, primarily in the very beginning stages. And as we towards the end, we start dividing up and everybody works together and connects. Um, just all different mediumship aspects of mediumship. There's so much to it. It's unbelievable.
Mm.
And I also do occasional courses. I just finished up one working with dreams. Like I say, I don't want to be master of everything, but that was something that I was kind of, I felt called to do because it's something that I've gotten to be pretty good at, helping people interpret dreams and in their own way with their own symbolism. And that's fun. I have a blog online, which is just my name, katiestarnes.com. But it's been up there for, gosh, a few decades.
Mm.
um, and then yeah, I'm always working, I'm always booking sessions for people privately. And yeah, just my website is katiestarnes.com and my all my info is on there, and I'll be running my next circle will probably begin in February.
Okay.
So it's usually I try to keep them small. Um, I think the maximum I'll allow into one circle is like 20 because I want everybody to have individualized attention, and
Mm.
and everybody becomes very close with each other. It's a tight-knit community and a
Nice.
lot of fun. We do
Absolutely.
invite people in though if they want to experience having a session or experience what it's like to sit in a circle for newbies that have never done it, because it's such a loving group, and I'm pretty careful about who's allowed in at this point because
Mm.
you want to keep that good mojo.
Absolutely.
But it's a great group of people, and there's a lot of pros that have come out of that too. So I'm pretty proud of that work.
Oh,
So yeah,
oh.
that's all I do.
No, no, that's beautiful. And see, that's kind of one of the things that I've been, you know, like, do I want to pursue it? Like how you said, like stick to that and just that and because I've tried, but I know I don't need it like the cards, right? I
Right.
I was trying it because like I can see like online people like to see the cards and this and that, but to me,
Yeah, they like the visual, and that's
yeah,
fine, but they're
but
not
to
necessary, really.
yeah, well, to me it's almost like it hinders it because when I see it, like if I'm focused on the cards, I don't think I'm really seeing it. Like when I see it, it's like very. But it's funny, like charades. Like for example, like something that happened to me once that I was just blown away because I was in the shower and I saw a vision of this woman and she was against the wall and she had her hat down low and I just could tell she was homeless, but she didn't look homeless, right? She didn't look all like how you would think typically, like the clothing, right, and this and that. So, but I just knew she was homeless, right? Like it didn't look, but she was against the wall like that, her head down. So then that night, like I was doing like the Uber Eats, right, the Uber deliveries and this and that. So I
Uh-huh.
got a delivery, and it was like somewhere, and it was like behind the businesses in the dark, and then
Aw.
yeah, you just follow the pin drop and they had ordered like a whole case of water and groceries and the whole thing. So I was delivering like a whole grocery list,
Uh-huh.
and then it was that person. I was like, what? And so there they were living out of their car. They had like their hat. They didn't want me to see their
Aw.
face. They were like, you could tell they were like, it's
Not
like
in
if
their
they,
best state.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But to me, it was like, wow. I was just like, what? Like, this is crazy because I thought, maybe I'm gonna see a movie with like a homeless person in it or something. Like, I
Oh,
don't know.
geez.
I didn't
You
expect
were
that.
actually
Like,
delivering to them.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I wouldn't. It's so crazy the way. See, and so that's what I'm saying. Like when you
That
see
was just
something,
showing you what your capabilities are.
yeah, yeah. Instead, and if like I don't think there's gonna be a card that's gonna show like that, right? Like
No, no,
a
no.
homeless
That's what
person
I'm
with a hat.
saying. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
when somebody comes to me, I'm getting full visuals of good example. Yesterday, client was talking to me on the phone and like, well, I vacation, I could see this vacation coming. I could see the palm trees, I could see the tan, I
Mm,
could see the just like the hotel room, the person she was with, I could see all of that. And she's like, do you see kids there? I'm like, the vision that I'm getting, I'm not seeing any kids, but that doesn't mean there's no kids there. So I just share exactly what I see.
mm,
Like you're saying this woman with her head kind of down and she's a little down and out. And, like you just share exactly what it is that you see. Don't embellish anything because then you're not really sharing what God showed you or whatever it is
mm.
whatever energy you want to call that. But yeah, I think with the circle though, like when you're practicing in a circle, it's really cool because you get instant feedback.
Mm.
And then you also hear like different ideas of how this person got their information or how this person gets their, you're getting
Mm.
different feedback. Because I look at like my guides, my angels, whatever you want, again, whatever you want to call them. And I do believe I work with specific guides, but no, I set the rules for them. I set the parameters for them, as well as them
Oh.
setting parameters for me. So if I'm saying, to my guides one thing, I think it's important to know that um, it goes both directions. And my client is always going to be the people on the other side. They're not the people here, right?
Mm.
So because we're serving a higher purpose, not just here on the planet, right?
Mm.
And the whole purpose of all of it is for healing. It's not for me to, boost up my ego, like, ooh, look at me, I got this right or I got that right. It's because I really do care and I want to help people and heal them, right? I
Mm-hmm.
get that from you too. And that's primarily what our goal is to help get through this whole fiasco of being on planet Earth in a lot easier and better way, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's
Absolutely.
hell.
No, and I'm glad you brought because I read that on your website about that your reason for doing it is for healing, and I love that, right? Because that's pretty much any message I've ever communicated, and I felt it. See, when you feel it from the other
Yeah,
side, it's like, oh
that
wow,
love
yeah.
coming through.
And that's why, see, having experienced something like that myself, I know the healing. Like I feel horrible for anyone that didn't get that like that. When I see someone that's still like 20 years later, they're still suffering. I'm like, wow, like I feel
Mm,
blessed that that I got
yeah.
to experience like an instant, hey, this is what they're saying, or hey, this,
You were
like
open to it. You were seeking it instead of staying the same way.
no, but even that fact that like imagine that like I was on a date with a my first date with a
Mhm.
medium when like it
Yeah,
was like,
that
you
is
know,
completely and totally mind-boggling. And
yeah.
it all led you down this path.
Yeah, like I didn't even know her. I don't think I knew how tapped in she was. I knew she was spiritual, but I didn't know to what level, I think. Or maybe we had talked about it because I had just met her and we hadn't met in
Yeah.
person. And she called me that day. I think I had already asked her, "Hey, you want to go get something to eat?" And she was busy. And then that day she called me. That day she was like, "Hey," and I kind of already knew. I was like, "What? You want to go get something to eat here?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Okay, well, cool. Let's meet up." Oh, and even that. I text her my address, and even right after, I was like, "What did I do?" Because I'm not that trusting, right? I was oh, like without thinking about it, I just text her my address. Okay, I was like, "You want to meet or you want to come to my house?" She's, "Oh, I'll go to you," and I was like, "All right." Text her my address, and then I was
Wow.
like, "Wait, what did I do? Like, why did I?
Ah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why did I do that?" But she didn't even make it. It was like, yeah, so all that stuff, right? So I understand the
Everything
healing.
worked out exactly the
Yeah,
way it was supposed to.
yeah, the way it was supposed to, 100%. Let
Cool.
me I don't know if there's anything else you want to share. If not, like I think oh, I wanted to know this. Are you open to like let's say we do a live and people were to call, would you be able to like tap in
Yeah.
for, yeah? You would be
Yeah,
open
that'd
to
be
that
fun.
or okay.
Sure. I was gonna do that on, okay, so I think some of this I said I really wouldn't want recorded, but um yeah, I'll explain that to you later. But yeah, I did try to do something like that and was instantly banned off TikTok.
Oh,
Like
wow.
I wasn't even on there for 1 minute.
Wow.
So yeah.
Okay.
Um uh,
Okay. But on YouTube it's not
yeah,
I think I
it's not
did it
like
with
that. I know. It's
yeah.
fine. I think it'll
Yeah.
work out well on YouTube.
Okay, okay. We'll do it then. So I guess with that, I'll put all the links so anyone that wants to get in contact
Yeah,
with you.
yeah. Go ahead and contact me. There's if you scroll down at the very bottom of my page, it'll let you know if I'm available to take calls or not at that moment. There's also a booking feature on there where you can schedule with me right on that website. It's really easy. Or you can just send me a text like what you did.
Okay, perfect,
That's
perfect.
fine.
Yeah. So thank you to everybody that watched. Thank you so much to Katie for sharing some of her
Thank
story
you.
with us. And I look forward to having her on here again. So I guess everybody look out for that, and I'll let everyone know when we're gonna do it live together.
Yeah, that'd be a blast. I think we'd have a lot of fun. Well, thank you
Absolutely.
for having me. I really appreciate it. And I will send this out to a million people for you. So we get a bunch of people watching us.
Ah, thank you
That
so
was a
much.
fun conversation. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. Okay.
Life may move fast, or it may move slow. I met a silly man who said he make it slow. We look up out towards space, or even at the sky. One that gets away, but never look inside. Breathe in, breathe out. Life is amazing, but we'll figure this out. I mean, human beings, I ain't got no doubt. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, sometimes you just feeling it, you know what I'm saying? You just feeling it. And I wanna feel this way forever.